So welcome, our beloved, brilliant colleague, Janielle. We so appreciate your remarkable leadership and solidarity. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks to our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So Janielle, please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work.
Thank you so much, Victor, for that amazing introduction. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Again, everyone, my name is Janielle Maxwell, and I'm based in what's colonially known as the Greater Toronto Area in Ontario. I come from a background of agri-food and urban and rural planning, and I ended up actually specializing in community and social development planning. And most recently, I've been working with the Canadian Worker Co-operative on our justice, equity, diversity, decolonization, and inclusion social acquisition project, which we kind of abbreviate the JEDI social acquisition project, now the JEDI business conversion project, just because that's a little bit more intuitive. But what it is essentially a project that seeks to really facilitate conversions from traditional business models, so more sort of capitalistic business models, to cooperatives, social enterprises, and other social purpose organizations. So at the start of the project, we really did a lot of research as to the current scope of cooperatives, and I'm just going to call them SPOs for short. Social purpose organizations, SPOs, in Canada, and we produced a lot of educational materials, mostly on our website, things as simple as what really is a cooperative, right? What are the different types of cooperatives? What's a social enterprise? And then a little bit more tailored material as to, okay, what are some general steps we can take to convert from a traditional business to a social purpose organization. We've had lots of events and webinars and lots of learnings from members of equity denied groups, as the project does focus on members of equity denied groups and sort of revitalizing a sense of awareness to that model. So it's been amazing.
That's absolutely incredible. And I'm a huge fan of your work and just your leadership and diligence around this. So once again, I give thanks for all that you're doing for so many. My next question is, what's inspiring you right now in your work? What has you curious, or what's keeping you up at night?
I think something that really inspires me is this idea of just sort of seeing all the pieces of the puzzle come together. I mean, there's a lot of issues right now, obviously, that we're facing, and I think that the way that cooperative economics have been situated to kind of help mitigate these issues, especially amongst members of marginalized groups, has been so incredibly inspiring to me. I think a lot of, especially when it comes to racialized equity denied groups, we have sort of these cooperative models, these social purpose organization models back home, for example, right? We're practicing this. It's been in our culture. It's been in our history. But then when we immigrate, for example, to North America, a lot of the times we forget about these models and we end up exchanging them for more sophisticated means of, let's say, financial economics, right? And so it's been really inspiring just to see how we can, again, revitalize a sense of awareness to that model and allow individuals to remember like the greatness with which we come from, and kind of using that to combat a lot of the socio-economic, a lot of issues that we're seeing today in society. So that's been really inspiring for me.
I couldn't agree more. My mother was a susu banker for 39 years. And when you think of Isusu, Susu, Partners Hands, Kigali, Box Hand, all these Roscas, the work that's Elder Abena, Janielle Scarett's doing at Banker Ladies. There's so many inspiring models internationally, but also locally around how we organize our economic relationships. So I couldn't agree with you more. My next question,
Exactly.
quick segue, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work? And what are some of the approaches you and your colleagues are taking to overcome some of these challenges and barriers?
Yeah, so I think at the beginning, one thing that was an issue, again, our project focuses on members of equity denied groups, and we're really having trouble finding members of equity denied groups that are really open to the cooperative model, to the social purpose organization model, not just in theory, but actually willing to pursue it, because it does take a lot of effort. It takes a lot of, educating yourself, a lot of cohesion between members of an organization, for example. And so that was a bit of a struggle at the beginning. But I think the way that we've been able to overcome that is just sort of, pushing forward. I think sometimes when you're completing a project, you're thinking of it as a linear process. Okay, you do A, B, C, and then D and E will follow. But we kind of had to we kind of reversed that a little bit. And so we said, okay, we're going to go ahead with these webinars. We're going to go ahead with inviting people. We tried to reach out to as many allied organizations as possible within the social finance sector, but also outside. And then we ended up attracting some of those individuals that were interested in the cooperative model. And because of, again, the background in agri-food, you're seeing a lot of urban farms, that's been on the rise in the past few years. And a lot of them are really interested in the cooperative model, and they're already operating as such, maybe informally. And so we've been able to make a few connections there as well. And things just kind of came full circle.
Incredible, incredible. So do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think our main thing right now is we're approaching the end of the project. And again, this project was funded by the Government of Canada's IRP program. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much to our funders. It really, really means a lot to have this opportunity for the CWCF. But essentially right now where we're at is we're looking to support as many individuals and groups as possible that are either interested in the cooperative model, that are developing one from the ground up, or that have a pre-existing business where they're trying to convert. So we're looking to support them through free early stage consultations. We meet with them, kind of gauge the scope. We're able to connect them with service providers, financial support. And so we're looking to do that as much as possible and to really get the word out about the JEDI project and to really sort of understand the history of equity denied groups with this model and make sure that we're amplifying that within the work that we do.
Incredible. So how do you feel about the future of co-op movements in Canada? How do you feel about the future of social acquisitions, these frameworks that have been used since time immemorial, but in some instances have been formalized and have different terms?
Yeah. Well, I'm really hopeful about the future of this model. I think when I think about the word future, I inevitably end up thinking about youth, right? And I think the youth of today were very much, open to a lot of these new business models. We're looking for more socially impactful organizations. We're looking for these organizations that recognize not only our ability as an employee, but our humanity, right? And so I think that if we're able to kind of reach youth with this message, I definitely see them being very receptive and open to kind of these, I won't say newer, but these forms, these alternative forms of like business. And so I feel really hopeful that we'll be able to sustain the sector and sustain the interest of youth and other individuals as well that are interested in this purpose. And I think one thing that's really important as well is recognizing the knowledge that a lot of our elders have in this space, right? And I think sometimes with Western society, there's a tendency to kind of be scared of aging, be scared of eldership. But I think in other, for example, ethnic groups, even in some European communities, there's this sort of reverence and respect for eldership and all that they have. And so I think it's really a matter of us telling these stories, having the courage to keep them going, and then passing that on to the next generation. And I'm super hopeful for that.
Ashe. I'm hopeful as well. And I couldn't agree more. Intergenerational collaboration is so important these times. Sometimes I meet young people that think they discovered racism or climate issues. And then other times I meet elders that are like, young people are to be seen, not heard. And you know what I mean? And I think a lot of times we have to find ways and means to make sure that we honor the elders whose shoulders we stand on, but also find ways and means to do more than just involve young people in a tokenistic way, but make sure that we censor their voices, because at the end of the day, we're just custodians of the future. They're gonna have to live in that future. So once again, intergenerational collaboration is so important in this work. So my second last question, what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
Our BIPOC board advisors have been really instrumental in a lot of what we're doing with the JEDI project and the work of CWCF. Juliet Kago Umeonido, I've presented with her several times and really just learned so much from her, as well as Nazreen Omar. Her input has been crucial to a lot of the work that we're doing on this JEDI project, again, as it is centered and focuses on members of equity denied groups. And then even just thinking of all the individuals that we had the privilege of meeting and collaborating with throughout the project, Mohammed Zakut from Lightwork Consulting Co-op, Daphne Nelson from Cooperative Development, and of course, Rush Christensen, really well-known co-op developer that has, a long history with the CWCF. And so just thinking of success, it's really being able to, pull together in cooperative fashion and lean on each other's expertise and resources to push towards a common goal. And I think that as long as we're getting the message out, as long as we're able to engage, the groups that we need to engage while continuing to center these experiences on sort of the knowledge, the longstanding knowledge, may I add, of members of Equity United groups, that is what success looks like to us.
Ashe, thank you. I appreciate your leadership and bigging up all those remarkable colleagues, Kay and Hazel, and everyone on your team. I appreciate the humility and the collective impacts of your work. So my last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, it sounds cliche, but I think this is really important. Having the courage to have conversations that may be tough, having the courage to have conversations that may be uncomfortable, if you want to see the sector sort of, again, centered on, these values of equity, democracy, anti-racism, anti-colonial values, all of these things. I think one thing that we need to do is have the courage to speak on these issues and to collaborate in terms of mitigating a lot of these problems that we're seeing. And it sounds easy, but again, for example, for me in the past, I've been in certain spaces where I was a little bit nervous to speak on certain issues to certain audiences. But I think it's really, really important when we have that support in the sector, like we're seeing in the solidarity economy and the cooperative sector. There's a lot more support for these, tough topics. And I think it's really important that we kind of take the bull by the horns and be courageous and speak on those issues in order for the co-op sector to be sustainable and to attract.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. Brasi Papa, thank you so much, our remarkable colleague. I appreciate your leadership, your tenacity, your resilience, and the sheer authenticity and brilliance you bring to your work and all that you're doing for so many. You're truly inspirational. And as always at Setsi, we close the way we began, by giving thanks to our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Janielle. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you also for the wonderful work that you and Setsi are doing. It's amazing.